Now, this message today is going to be more of a political message than what I ordinarily bring. In fact, that may be real, what you might call political. Because I pray that every one of us in this building today would be one of the ones in Ezekiel that's marked with the inkhorn. Instead of just going through life, living our life in this nation, just totally unconcerned about the surroundings about us. Even though I may not mention these things from the pulpit so often, is because I don't think it would be wise. It wouldn't be good for our spirits. But Paul said that we must not be ignorant of Satan's devices, lest he take advantage of us. 2 Corinthians. If we are ignorant of his devices, then he can sneak up on us, so to speak. And knowledge is power. What makes a person stupid is just simply lack of knowledge, and then their attitude. But ignorance is just simply not knowing. Well, fortunately, the Spirit of the Lord awakened me to my national surroundings when I was in the 9th grade in school. Why he did that, I don't know. Why I was concerned, and this other student, a Baptist student, was concerned, why we too were concerned, and seemingly no one else, I don't know, other than the choice of God. But I have entitled this, America, Prepare to Meet Thy God. In Amos chapter 4, Amos chapter 4, that's after the book of Joel, I want to read several verses. Now Amos was a prophet to the northern house. And this is what he said. I'm going to kind of start right in the middle of the chapter. Verse 6. And I also have given you cleanness of teeth in all your cities, and want of bread in all your places. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. And also I have withholden the rain from you, California, when there were yet 3 months to the harvest. And I caused it to rain upon one city, and caused it not to rain upon another city. It's not just El Nino. El Nino, if it's the natural cause, God calls El Nino. One piece was rained upon, and the piece whereupon it rained not withered. So 2 or 3 cities wandered unto one city to drink water, but they were not satisfied. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. I have smitten you with blasting and mildew, when your gardens and your vineyards and your fig trees and your olive trees increased. The palmer worm devoured them, yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. I have sent among you the pestilence after the manner of Egypt. Your young men have I slain with the sword in Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, and other parts of the Arab world, and elsewhere, even before that, and have taken away your horses. And I have made the stink of your camps to come up unto your nostrils, yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. I have overthrown some of you as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and ye were as a firebrand plucked out of the burning, yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. How many times did he say that in this few verses? Therefore, thus will I do unto thee, O Israel. And because I will do this unto thee, prepare to meet thy God, O Israel, America. We have often used this term and phrase, prepare to meet thy God, for the individual, and it fits. But it was given to a nation. How was God going to deal with the nation? Now, we know already that he sent, in these verses, famine, drought, war, blasting, excessive rain, flooding in one area, dry in the other area. And he says, this is of me. This is of me. Yet ye have not returned unto me. Therefore, thus will I do unto thee, O Israel, because I will do this unto thee, prepare to meet thy God. Now, Jesus, I don't really know where to start in this message today, so it may seem somewhat disjointed in parts. But Jesus gave several bewares in his ministry. He said, beware of false prophets. He said, beware of men, because I'm not going to read all these verses, putting it in our plain language, because they'll turn on you. You can't trust people, in other words, some people. So beware of false prophets. Beware of men. Then he said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Beware of the leaven of the Sadducees. Those were the religious organizations. And then he said, be aware of the leaven of Herod. Well, Herod was the civil establishment. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, that was the religious establishment. And then he said, beware of Herod, beware of the government. Because Herod was the government. And then he said, beware of the scribes, the teachers. And I'm going to translate it in 21st century language. Beware of the public school system. They're the scribes, the teachers of the law. Quote the law, whatever law they're teaching, not necessarily the law of God. They were once teaching the law of God in this nation for probably 150 years through the McGuffey Reader, but no longer. The scribes have changed, and the scribes have changed their curriculum. Now, America, I have several pieces of paper here that I'm going to have to sort through. But America has changed our gods. Turn to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 2. Beginning with verse number 4. Hear ye the word of the Lord, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, what iniquity have your fathers found in me, that they are gone far from me, and have walked after vanity, and are become vain? What wickedness, what iniquity, what wrong have we found in the Almighty? None. Verse 11. Hath a nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. Be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid. Be ye very desolate, saith the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have, number one, forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. Number two, they have hewn them out cisterns. They have come up with their own philosophies and laws and rules by which to govern. Hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Verse 19. This is what the prophet told ancient Judah. Thine own iniquity shall correct thee. In other words, putting it in plain, oaky language, your sin is going to backfire on you. Our national sin is going to backfire on our nation. And we as individuals, it rains upon the just and the unjust. Individuals suffer as much as the nation. Thine own wickedness shall correct thee, and thy backslidings shall reprove thee. Know therefore and see that it is an evil thing and bitter, that thou hast forsaken the Lord thy God, and that my fear is not in thee, saith the Lord God of hosts. America's new religion. I was thinking about this one day. It's the unholy trinity. Number one, this is the way I've outlined it: liberal and compromising churches. Pastors are, quote, professionals. They used to be recognized right along with doctors and lawyers and given special privileges on bus rides or whatever, discounts here and there. But, you know, preachers in the last 30 years have fallen into reproach. Money, sexual corruption, whatever political corruption, churches that have forsaken the Bible, the gospel truth, churches that some no longer believe in the virgin birth of the Lord Jesus Christ, some no longer preach any type of holiness whatsoever. The people, some of them dress like they're going to a skunk fight, or maybe they've just come from the fight. You know, they have no pride, and the preachers are afraid to say anything. The preachers are afraid of their congregations because of numbers and money. So we have a new religion in America, and we have a Christianity that is not an apostolic Christianity. It's a rock and roll church, just like was prophesied by William Branham in the early 1960s. He said, someday there will be a Pentecostal rock and roll church in America. Well, he's right. You can turn on TBN, Trinity Broadcasting Network. I turned it on the other day. I was literally shocked. And I thought I was unshockable. The music groups that were there, you would find them at a worldly rock concert. Nothing sacred. They dress like the world. Both men and women, if you want to call them women, males and females. They sang like the beat was the same. Everything was the same. The flashing lights, the gyrations of the body. Where did all this come in? It came in through the hippie generation. And it stuck, and it got caught in the churches, and now they are promoting it. The unholy trinity, liberal and compromising churches. Number two, anti-Christian news and entertainment media is absolutely bombarded America with everything from the iPhone to the TV to the theaters and everything. Folks, we should not allow our ears and our eyes to be garbage cans for Hollywood, trash bins for Hollywood or New York. We should not allow our spirits to be contaminated by men who hate the Lord Jesus Christ and deny His deity. Number three, government-funded institutions of public education. Even as far back as Martin Luther, he said that they would be, plain language, hellholes for your children. They can take somebody that is an absolute, excuse my language, but Hollywood prostitute, and make that person, whether it be man or woman, make them into an angel. And put them before your eyes on the television screen or in the theaters. And then they can take a good person and demonize that person. And you may ask, well, there's good things shown in the theater. Well, if you go there, you better take your gun to protect yourself. But worse than that, the reason why I do not go to a public theater, I didn't go see Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. I find more of The Passion of the Christ right here. But, see, the next week, that same theater may be playing a XXX movie. I do not want to take my money and support that institution. So I don't go. Keep yourself unspotted from the world. That's what James said. Pure religion is to keep oneself unspotted from the world. So Jesus warned us, the leaven of the Sadducees, the Pharisees, that's the religious establishment. And then he said, beware of Herod, the government. Our government is now the enemy of Christ. We may as well admit it. Quit making excuses. Maybe the next administration will be better. I doubt it. Now, Jeremiah asks the question, has a nation changed their gods? Let me read you a few quotes. Do you know that early on in our nation that our Congress formed the American Bible Society? And immediately after the creation of the Declaration of Independence, the Continental Congress voted to purchase and import 20,000 copies of the Bible and distribute them to the people. This is a quote by Patrick Henry. It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this great nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians. Not on religion, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ. For that reason alone, people of other faiths have been afforded freedom of worship here, unquote. Our first Supreme Court Chief Justice, John Jay, made this statement. Quote, Providence has given to our people the choice of their rulers, and it is the duty as well as the privilege and interest of our Christian nation to select and prefer Christians for their rulers. Unquote. John Quincy Adams, the 6th president of this nation, was also the chairman of the American Bible Society. And on July the 4th, 1821, he said this, quote, "The highest glory of the American Revolution was this: it connected in one indissoluble bond the principles of civil government with the principles of Christianity." Unquote. In 1782, the United States Congress voted this resolution. Quote, "The Congress of the United States recommends and approves the Holy Bible for use in all schools." Unquote. 1782. William Holmes McGuffey is the author of the McGuffey Reader, which was used well over 100 years in our nation as the school book. 125 million copies were sold until 1963. Let me read you a short paragraph from that book. Quote, "The Christian religion is the religion of our country. From it are derived our notions on the character of God, the great moral governor of the universe. On its doctrines are founded the peculiarities of our free institutions. From no source has the author drawn more conspicuously than from the sacred scriptures. From all these extracts from the Bible, I make no apology." Unquote. Of the first 108 universities founded in America, 106 of them were founded as Christian universities, including Harvard. Now, I think it was Harvard that last week voted that when you refer to a female on campus, it's no longer a she. Or a male on campus, it's no longer a he. They have come up with a gender neuter phrase to refer to the students. I don't know if it's not it. It's something other than that. Can you believe this? You're talking about political correctness gone in the ditch. These are our highest levels of educators. But in 1636, I have a quote in my Bible. I wrote in my Bible. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I don't find it right off. But it was made by the president of Harvard in 1636. Maybe I'll find it. This is it. The first president of Princeton, Reverend Jonathan Dickinson, said this: "Cursed be all that learning that is contrary to the cross of Christ." Would that come out of Princeton today? Anyway, back to Harvard. The Harvard Student Handbook, rule number 1, quote, "Let every student be plainly instructed and earnestly pressed to consider well. The main end of his life and studies is to know God and Jesus Christ, which is eternal life, and therefore to lay Jesus Christ as the only foundation of all sound knowledge and learning. And seeing the Lord only giveth wisdom, let everyone seriously set himself by prayer in secret to seek it of him. Wow. James Madison, the primary author of the Constitution, said this: "We have staked the whole future of our new nation, not upon the power of government, far from it. We have staked the future of all our political constitutions upon the capacity of each of ourselves to govern ourselves according to the moral principles of the Ten Commandments." Where are those men today? They don't exist. And they're not running for president on either part of the crime family, either branch of the crime family. They're not there. But let me read you something here that we lived through, all of us. 1963. The Supreme Court ruled that the Bible reading was outlawed in schools. And this is their justification. Just think of how intelligent this statement is. Quote, "If portions of the New Testament were read without explanation, they could and have been psychologically harmful to children." Unquote. In 1965, the courts denied as unconstitutional the right of a public school student to bow his head in the cafeteria and say a prayer over his food. And in 1980, Stone versus Graham outlawed the Ten Commandments in the public schools. And this was their reasoning. Quote, "If the posted copies of the Ten Commandments were to have any effect at all, it would be to induce school children to read them. And if they read them, meditated upon them, and perhaps venerated and obeyed them, this is not a permissible objective." Unquote. Where was God at Columbine? He'd been voted out. He wasn't allowed on the campus. Where was God at Sandy Hook? He wasn't allowed on campus. The Supreme Court, now I'm going to make a statement, I guess maybe I shouldn't. I don't know whether you believe in hell or not, but if there isn't one, I'd give the first $25 to start one. Somebody needs to be punished. I mean, a whole nation is at stake, a whole generation of children and grandchildren because of 9 men on the bench. And now women ruling over us, sending down their edicts because they wear a long black robe and they call themselves a judge. Beware of the scribes, those that dictate the rules by which we live. A nation has gone from men like James Madison and William McGuffey and men of that nature to a low caliber that is now reigning over us. But look at your cattle ponds. The scum always floats on top. When small men cast long shadows, you know the sun is about to set. If the children read the Ten Commandments and obey them, that would not be a permissible objective. So in turn, they would rather have them bring drugs to school, or a gun, or possibly come with the intent of raping the teacher. We've changed our God. The character of your God determines your behavior. You see, if your God, that is the Lord Jesus Christ, is not our King, then our King will be our God. You follow me? Our government will be our God. We call that statism. Everything that the state does is fine. Now, we live in perilous times. Peter said that. Paul told Timothy that. We have right now a county clerk of the court, Kimberly Davis of Rowan County, Kentucky, in jail. Because she would not bow to Nebuchadnezzar. Last Friday evening, for a 1-hour program, the broadcast of ABC concerning the Pope's message to America. Very disturbing to me. It was a well-handpicked, well-orchestrated, pre-planned propaganda presentation. To justify breaking our laws of immigration. I told my wife later, you know, it would have been great, these little children asking him questions. It would have really been terrific if someone would have said, Mr. Francis, what is your comment on the fact that every person involved in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln was a Roman Catholic? What are your comments on that? And that John Wilkes Booth was a Roman Catholic. Mary Surratt and her son were Roman Catholics, and her son fled to Canada, and where'd they find him? Who harbored him? In the convent. And the priest gave him word that the federal law enforcement's right behind you. They put him on a ship and sent him to Paris. And they finally found him in another Catholic church. Another question. What is your comment concerning 60 million Protestants that were killed during the Dark Ages? I'd like to hear your comment on that. And I'd like to understand a little more about this, the nunneries, and how many children have been aborted and even killed after they're born. And you have a message for America? The book of Proverbs. 29. Verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. The people mourn. Now the prophet Isaiah said this in chapter 9 and verse 16. He said, the leaders of this people cause them to err. And then they that are led of them are destroyed. It's the leaders. Now, our leaders have come out against legalized murder. And reading that magazine this week that was lent to me was very disturbing. The articles in there concerning not only killing the babies, but dissecting them for spare parts and selling them for big money. And then we also have another lawsuit by the ACLU against the state of Oklahoma to remove the Ten Commandments from the Capitol grounds. And our Attorney General wrote a letter in protest. But Satan never gives up. That crowd will get that Ten Commandment monument sooner or later. We have enemies. The church has enemies. Jesus Christ has enemies. Without going into a long list, I have somewhat boiled it down this way. The enemies of God hate the concept and the truth of election. If you think about it, we're all equal in the sight of God. You know, this egalitarian thing that came out of the French Revolution of the 1790s. Number one, they hate election. Number two, they hate theocracy, rule by God. Psalm chapter 2, let's remove his bans from us. And number three, they hate God's law. They hate the law of God. They say it's old, it's antiquated, it no longer fits our society. They hate it with a purple passion. We have enemies. Now, those couples that showed up at Rowan County in the clerk's office, they could have easily gone to the next county and got their license. But no, they're not wanting equal rights. They want superior rights. They're proving a point. And if they made enough noise, that the cameras from around the nation would be right there, and they would get the support of judges, lawyers, ACLU, JDL, ADL, and all the other L's. And the government. And it would go into a civil matter and then a criminal matter. What do they need a license for anyway? They've been living together for X number of years. They're trying to impose their lifestyle on a whole nation. You know, there's a lot of sins. There's the sin of adultery, thievery, lying, but, you know, no one, as far as I know, has formed an organization to impose lying on the whole nation and make it legal. But this is the sin that was in Sodom and Gomorrah, as in the days of Lot, Jesus said. We have changed our gods. Our president, vice president, I even hate to use those words in reference to those men, because it's defamation to the office. Came out strong, their personal feelings concerning same-sex marriage. We have changed our gods. Hear, O Israel, because I have dealt with you as such, prepare to meet thy God. How? In judgment. I'm in the context of Amos. Our text proves that. Now I want to share this with you. For the last several years, we've all heard about political correctness. It's in churches, you know, like my brother said that he was in a staff meeting in his church, not the one he's at now, but a previous larger church. And the pastor had just come back from California from a conference. He called in all the staff and he said, now from now on, nobody is a sinner. Don't call anybody a sinner, because everybody is pre-saved. Kind of like a used car or something, you know. Don't offend anybody. This is a seeker-friendly church. He called me up and he said, I got to get out of here. And he did. It is in churches. It's in education. It's in government. It's in social life. Political correctness is everywhere. It has taken different forms. You know the forms that it has taken. We have known people that have suffered lawsuits, etc. So have you. Because they hurt somebody's feelings. They offended somebody. Even by telling a joke or a comment or whatever. Wearing the wrong clothes or something. But where did political correctness start? And I want to share this. I've hesitated sharing this. But I want to give you a little history lesson. Now we know that Karl Marx was a son of a Jewish rabbi, and he wrote Das Kapital, one of his books, 1848. And he was writing all these different articles, and he lived in different places, and one of the places that he lived was in a flat in London. And he was writing articles to Horace Greeley, the editor of the New York Tribune, during the time of the Civil War. And Horace Greeley was paying him for these articles. And Horace Greeley would publish them in the New York paper. And it was nothing but propaganda to keep the people of the North all stirred up concerning the war. See, Karl Marx was a revolutionary. He and his wife were living in that flat in London. They say they lived like pigs. It was like a pigsty. But this was the nature of this man, a very ungodly man. And his whole purpose was to change society worldwide. Why would one man have such an aspiration to change the moral values of the world. In Matthew chapter 13, I think it's verse 28, Jesus is talking about the wheat and the tares. And this is what he said. An enemy hath done this. An enemy is a deliberate plan, pre-planned effort to undermine or to destroy or dilute or pervert something that was good. An enemy hath done this. And we have taken the enemy into our national bosom. And guess what? We're getting burned. Now, let me hurry up. The 20th century opened up with 5 philosophies that have absolutely turned our nation upside down. Number 1, Marxian socialism, which is called communism or Bolshevism or Fabian socialism over in England. And the results was worldwide political, economic, social revolution, reducing man to nothing but an economic producer to advance a totalitarian state. Who perpetrated this? Karl Marx, a German Jewish social and political theorist. He wrote Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto. It perverted the role of government and the economic system of the world. Number 2, when I say the 20th century opened up, I mean in 1900, these 5 things were facing our nation. Number 2, organic evolution proposes that man came from the same group of animals as the chimpanzee and other primates. It teaches that man is a biological animal link in the process of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. The results? It has fostered man's moral irresponsibility towards his Creator and cheapened the value of life, what we call evolution. The perpetrator? Charles Robert Darwin, a British naturalist. He wrote The Origin of the Species and the Descent of Man. The perversion was the sanctity of the origin and the sanctity of life. Number 3, psychoanalysis. This philosophy, this method of psychotherapy and the treatment of mental problems. I'm not going to read it all. It emphasized the importance of sex in human behavior, and the perpetrator, Sigmund Freud, said in a normal sex life, no neurosis is possible. The results? This philosophy has reduced the moral stature of man to nothing more than a sexual animal. It allows unrestrained sexual activity in order to satisfy man's depraved lust in order to maintain sound mental health. Who was the perpetrator? Sigmund Freud, an Austrian Jewish physician. He perverted man's moral responsibility to God. Number 4, racial equalitarianism. This anthropological theory advances the belief that human nature and mental abilities are largely the product of environmental influences and little affected by genetic heredity. It denies the scientific facts and important significance of the reality of each racial structure and the distinctive biological history of each group. The results? The loss of race consciousness, seeks the convergence of different racial and ethnic groups into a common community. The perpetrator? Franz Uri Boas, a German-Austrian Jew cultural anthropologist. The perversion, God's law of racial integrity and genetic preservation. Number 5, biblical textual liberalism. The Revised Version of the Bible of 1881 to 1884. It opened the floodgate to paraphrase all types of different translations of the Bible, and there's many of them. But this was the source text. The perpetrators was Brooke Westcott, a British bishop, and Fenton Hort, an Irish theologian. Since then, we've had all types of paraphrases, translations, etc. It perverted divine revelation and the purity of truth in Holy Scriptures. So they polluted 5 things: government and economic responsibility. Number 2, the origin and destiny of man. Number 3, man's moral responsibility to God. Number 4, God's law of racial integrity and genetic preservation. And number 5, divine revelation and the purity of Holy Scripture. Now, where did political correctness come from? Karl Marx, Nikolai Lenin, Trotsky, that element, they were financed by a Jewish banker by the name of Jacob Schiff. This is common knowledge. This is not any secret knowledge. Everybody knows this that's studied it to any degree. The revolutionaries were trained on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York, and then shipped to Moscow and raided Red Square, overthrew the Tsarist government, and those Bolsheviks took over. Now, as we all know, they killed the royal family, which was blood related to Queen Victoria, King George V, King George VI, and Queen Elizabeth II. Because Tsar Nicholas Romanov was first cousin to King George V. So they killed them in a brutal, brutal way. I mean, it's just sickening to read the account. Then threw their bodies in a well, threw lime on top of it. They didn't even get a decent burial, much as common people, much less as royalty. That's what the Bolsheviks did. Well, after the Russian Revolution and the communists took over, and they set up their commissar of 300 men, and 285 of them were Jewish. They figured this would just go all over Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe. But it didn't happen that way. The goal of the Marxist revolutionaries was somewhat slowed down. And so they tried different to foment revolutions in different countries over in Europe. The uprisings in Berlin were led by a Jewish woman by the name of Rosa Luxemburg. In Bavaria, led by Kurt Eisner. And in Hungary, led by Bela Kun, 1919. And then Trotsky's forces went over to Poland in 1919. The revolution took place in each one of these countries, but it did not have the desired results. So they said, Plan B. Plan B was this. Several men got together and formed what they called the Institute for Social Research. It's a nice sounding name, you know. It's commonly known as the Frankfurt School. None of your radio talk show hosts will touch this. None of them. I've only heard one out of all the hours that I've listened to talk show. One man mentioned the name Frankfurt School but didn't comment. It's sensitive. The Frankfurt School. The intended name for this was the Institute for Marxism. And the father of this and the chief funder was Felix Weil, W-E-I-L. And this is what he wrote in 1971, that he wanted the Institute to become known and perhaps famous due to its contributions to Marxism as a scientific discipline. This Frankfurt School blended Marx with Freud and as well as other, quote, intellectuals for the purpose of what they called critical theory that results in destruction of a culture. They founded this in Frankfurt, Germany, 1923. Well, they were there for 10 years, and guess what happened? The Nazis came along. They figured, we better get out of here to save our neck. So we have an educator by the name of John Dewey in the 1930s, very popular. Some of you already aware of him. Many of us that are old enough remembers a man on the news by the name of Edward R. Murrow. Another skunk. I remember him well. John Dewey, Edward R. Murrow invited these revolutionaries to America when they had to flee Germany in 1933 because they saw what was coming at the rise of Nazism. Where did they go? They came to this country. Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Chicago University, Berkeley. Their whole purpose was, if we cannot create revolution in the streets to overthrow the government and the culture and to get rid of Christianity, we'll do it through education. So they got seats, chairs, whatever you want to call it, in these universities and began to teach. If we could change the language, take a common word such as gay, that was a decent word at one time, and through this process change its meaning. Change the meaning of she and he, and change the meaning of a baby to just tissue and whatever. You know the story. Well, I want to read you a list of the chief men in the Frankfurt School, the most influential. Walter Benjamin, German Jewish philosopher, sociologist, and essayist. Franz Oppenheimer. These are not Irishmen. In case you figured that one out, huh? Franz Oppenheimer, German Jewish sociologist, political economist, came to the U.S. in 1938. Franz L. Neumann, German Jewish political activist, labor lawyer, came to the U.S. in 1938. Sigmund Krakauer, German Jewish journalist, sociologist, cultural critic. He came to Columbia University. Theodore W. Adorno, German Jewish sociologist, philosopher, musicologist, came to the U.S. in 1937. Friedrich Pollock, German non-practicing Jew, social scientist, philosopher, came to the U.S. in 1934. Max Horkheimer, German Jewish philosopher, sociologist, came to the U.S. in 1934. Came to the University of Columbia and the University of Chicago. Herbert Marcuse, German Jewish philosopher, sociologist, political theorist, came to the U.S. in 1934. Erich Fromm, German Jewish social psychologist, Columbia University, 1934. Karl A. Wittfogel, German American playwright, historian, sinologist. Pre-World War II, he was a communist, and then after the war, he claimed to be an anti-communist. Alfred Sohn Rothel, a French Jewish economist, philosopher. And Leo Lowenthal, a German Jewish economist, came to the Columbia University in 1934 and then went to Berkeley. They devised a plan. Then they came to America. They got in these high seats of learning. They taught their students. What did the students do? They taught the next generation and the next generation. And now it's all through universities, colleges. It's through public school system. I didn't make this up, folks. Check your history. Now do you see why your local preacher won't share this information? He might say, oh, political correctness is not good. But let's get to the root of it. John the Baptist said, take your axe, quit beating the branches, and get to the root of the tree. And Jesus said, an enemy hath done this. An enemy hath done this. And Jesus called the enemy children of the wicked one. That's Bible. That's not me, that's Bible. Children of the wicked one. In other words, they're people. Can a nation take fire into its bosom and not be burned? Has a nation changed their gods? Am I out of time, David? Deuteronomy chapter 28. When I first read this several years ago, boy, it just hit me in the face. We're all familiar with Deuteronomy 28 and what it means. If you disobey me, I'll curse you. It's the curses. Verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters, when I read this verse, or when we read it, think of political correctness coming right out of the Frankfurt School and the minds of these evil men down to our children and grandchildren today. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand to bring them back. That's what it means. We're helpless. Our children are slaves of the state. No slave, how does that quote go? No slave is in bondage more than one who thinks he's free. Free public education. General Douglas MacArthur died in 1964. He made this speech sometime in the 50s. He says, "There seems to be no restraint in this lust for taxes." It began with the federal income tax law of 1914, which gave unlimited access to the people's wealth and the power for the first time to levy taxes not for revenue, but for social purposes. Go down here, an admiral and whatever, and get you a new phone. You know what I'm talking about? A free phone. Or maybe go and get you some free condoms. Social purposes. He saw this coming. Since then, the sphere of government has increased with a kind of explosive force. General Douglas MacArthur. He also said this: the domestic scene has witnessed the greatest orgy of spending in history, a fantastic phenomenon which defies all reason. Let me read you this other quote. Quote, this is not MacArthur. "I fear that foreign bankers, with their craftiness and torturous tricks, will entirely control the exuberant riches of America and use it systematically to corrupt modern civilization. They will not hesitate to plunge the whole of Christendom into wars and chaos in order that the earth should become their inheritance." Unquote. Otto von Bismarck, Chancellor of Germany, died in 1898. Why? Because he was in debt to the Jewish bankers. His government was also in debt. Guess who said this? "Let me issue and control the nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws." You got it. Mayor Amschel Rothschild. We have three major sins in the church: the sin of commission, the sin of omission, and the sin of tolerance. Just tolerate it. Don't speak out against it. Now, I realize that this is going to be heard by many on the internet. But we are losing our heritage very, very fast. And we lose it by different ways. And each one of these is a sermon. Number one is thievery. Subtlety. We lost it through the men on Jekyll Island. If you know what I'm referring to, that formed the Federal Reserve System. An evil banking central bank. Andrew Jackson hated him, and he said, "By the grace of God, I'll rout you out of this nation." They hate him to this day. We lose our heritage by thievery. Number two, gift. We just give it away. That's what we call altruism. Oh, we're so compassionate. Oh, we want to feed the world. We want to take everybody in. Just like Friday night's program with the Pope. Number three, acquiescence to threat. We don't have men in our leadership that has a backbone to say, you want to strike America? You'll learn a lesson. and a fast one. We no longer have anyone that has the courage to march up San Juan Hill and give up a political position and become a military hero. They're hiding in their three-piece suits, legislating themselves another raise. Number 4, by neglect. We just simply don't know what's going on. Well, don't say that in church. You know, that's too political. Well, that'll be offensive to people. The church should be the place where the nation is warned of its evil. The church house, the state house is not doing it. The schoolhouse is not doing it. We need men of God that has a backbone. Get the yellow streak out. That belongs on the highway, not up your spine. And ignorance. You just don't know what's going on. Don't care. Go through life like a blooming idiot, thinking everything is hunky-dory when there's a wolf at the door.